We are only 2 days into the Mythical Island format, but the meta seems like it has completely shaken up. Okay, we are seeing a bunch of new decks do insanely well in some of these tournaments. We're seeing some old decks kind of fall off that were very good in the Genetic Apex format, but just can't really hold their own anymore with these new cards. So what I want to do in today's video is show you guys some of these new lists that are doing well, give you a baseline for your testing so you don't have to build anything from scratch. It's always good to build off of somebody else's idea. They've already done some of the work. They've already tested it in tournaments. Take a look at their list, make your own changes as you see necessary. And we'll also go over some of the old decks that now seem to be still performing in this format thanks to either new cards or maybe they're still just positioned well in the meta because of their natural strength. So let's take a look at these lists. And if you guys are enjoying the content, please be sure to subscribe. I have about 25,000 of you that consistently return to this channel but have not yet hit the subscribe button. So if that sounds like you, I would really appreciate you considering doing so. So the first one I want to go over is this Scolipede Weezing deck. I super underrated this card, I guess, because not only is it winning tournaments, but it is consistently taking up a lot of spots in top 8s, top 16s. This won a around 200 person tournament. All the tournaments I'm talking about are about 200 people. We haven't gotten to the big ones of this weekend yet, just so you know going forward. But another tournament just wrapped up today, and this deck took up like 4 or 5 of the top 16 spots, which is insane because Mewtwo only took up 3 spots and Celebi only took up 3 spots. So for this to have a better percentage showcase in top 16 than those other decks is kind of nuts. The idea of the deck is very, very simple. You have a Weezing to do your early damage, get poison on the opponent's Pokemon, and then you have the Scolipede to come in, and if the opponent's active Pokemon is poisoned, you're going to be doing 120 more damage, or 120 damage with that Venoshock attack. That's enough to knock out Mewtwo because of weakness. That's enough to knock out Celebi when you account for the poison damage as well. So it just seems to be hitting the right numbers right now. It really feels like the top decks or the most played decks are Mewtwo still, sadly, and Celebi. So if you are a basic Pokemon that, a one prize Pokemon that is able to one-shot them and only give up 1 prize back when you get knocked out, that's a very, very good trade for you. We also have the one Tauros here. Tauros can be good in a pinch if you can't pull off the Weezing into Scolipede with the poison play. Tauros is just going to do 120 damage every single time it's attacking an EX, so that can help you against Pikachu. Even with a poison, now you're still gonna knock out Celebi with the Tauros, so it's also there if you somehow can't find the complete evolution line to the Scolipede to get that up and running. Also, super interesting, right? The only item cards we play are 2 Pokeball. The rest of this deck is supporters and Pokemon. We got 2 Koga, 2 Leaf, 2 Research, 1 Sabrina. Leaf's just going to let you pivot out of that Weezing if you need to, pivot out of Whirlipede, pivot out of Tauros if you start it. Very, very good, very streamlined deck. This is something that you're going to see a lot of moving forward. Now that we have, I would say, higher value cards, you're not seeing a lot of decks play things like Potion or Red Card anymore. You're seeing them opt for these much stronger supporter cards, or depending on the deck, much stronger item cards if they benefited from them, or just even more Pokemon. Because now we have a lot of good Pokemon options as techs, like this Tauros, like Mew EX. So super interesting first list. I mean, 2 item cards only. That is crazy. That was unheard of in Genetic Apex, but now we're seeing it here in the Mythical Island format. So yeah, Scolipede Weezing has been doing super well. It is like, for placement wise, it's like a top 3, top 4 deck, which is just crazy to me. Dark type seems to finally have found its place in the metagame. Last format, it was okay. It wasn't the best. It was nowhere near being as strong as the top 3 or even top 4 decks. So it's cool to see Dark type get a bit of a boost from this new set, and I honestly, I love Scolipede. I love it. I remember I played it through, I played with it in my very first Pokemon Black playthrough. I just love the Pokemon, so super cool to see it getting a good card. Now this is a list I'm super excited about because if you have been watching the channel, you know I love Greninja, and this is a Greninja Dragon Tauros deck. We're just playing one prizers, and the idea is to just be aggressive as fast as possible. Druddigon has that nice rough skin ability, making it so if anything attacks it, they're going to take 20 damage. That can fix up a lot of math on your Greninja or Tauros attacks. Most Pokemon aren't going to be one-shotting Druddigon while it's in the active spot. It's usually going to take them a bit to build up to an attack that can one-shot it. So it's usually going to get 2 ticks of value out of that rough skin ability, which is super cool. Yeah, it just seems like a very low to the ground evolve into Greninja, start swinging with these basics. You can kind of pick and choose which one you want to use, and it somehow just works. This deck has been doing very well. It's usually got a top 8 spot in most of these tournaments. It hasn't won anything yet, but it seems to be performing very well. We're running the 2 Research, the 2 Giovanni, the 2 Leaf, and the 1 Sabrina, and then just 2 Pokeball and 1 X Speed for the item cards. So again, you're seeing the theme. Not a lot of item cards. Item cards stock is falling. It's all about the supporters and the Pokemon right now, which makes sense. I mean, especially when you're running Tauros, you really want to be running Leaf, because starting Tauros and not being able to retreat it immediately can be pretty bad. It's hard to build up 3 energy on a 100 HP Pokemon in this meta. You're going to get 2-shot by a Mewtwo. You could potentially get 1-shot by a Celebi. Let me know in the comments if you feel like it's more like a 90% chance that a 2 energy Celebi hits double heads every single game, because that's how I feel. I've been getting bullied by Celebi on the ladder non-stop. I just cannot seem to get their coin flips to go my way. So yeah, just a very cool deck. Giovanni, very necessary, because you want to be able to one-shot with that Tauros even if you don't have a Greninja up. But the Greninja is going to fix math on Tauros so often. You can use a Greninja ping plus a Tauros attack with a Giovanni to one-shot a Mewtwo. Giovanni's going to let you do that without a Greninja ping against a Mew or a Celebi, which are really the numbers you want to be hitting right now. The number you want to be hitting, the golden number in this format, seems to be 130 HP. So we really got to look at other cards that can hit that 130, either with a Giovanni or without, to be competitive. And then 150, obviously, you know, for Mewtwo, it's tougher for decks to hit that 150 number. Not a lot of them can do it, but with Greninja, this deck actually can. So again, just very cool list. I love seeing that no EX decks can do well in the metagame, and it seems like they've gotten kind of stronger with this format, just getting more tools. This Tauros is really changing things. It's just such a good attacker that lets you play, that gives a lot of strategies a boost. Tauros is so good for that end game. You just need one more big attack in order to lock up the game. And Tauros is just colorless energy, so you can splash him into any deck you have. Very good card. I knew it was going to be good, but I did not expect it to be this good. So very cool Greninja Dragon Tauros list. Now we have to talk about the elephant in the room, Celebi EX. And I just want to say, I love that I was kind of right. All right. The second I saw Celebi, I went, we need to put this with Exeggutor. I've been waiting for Exeggutor to be good for real, and it looks like he can go in Celebi, so let's just toss him in there. Wasn't sure it was quite the best way to play it, but it seems like it is. So most of the best performing lists we've seen have included some sort of Exeggutor line in the deck. Exeggutor just gives you a little bit more time if you're off to a slow start. It can act as a wall to help you build up that superior in the back, while also building up energy on the Celebi to come in for one big knockout at the end of the game. You also have the one Exeggutor from Mythical Island as well, because his attack is super strong. When you have Superior up and that Exeggutor up, it can just be a guaranteed way to get you a knockout with only 2 energy. He's going to be knocking out Arcanine EXs, Starmie EXs maybe? No, Starmie EXs, you need a Giovanni. Articuno EXs, Pikachu EXs, Zapdos EXs, all of these, most of these EXs that are fully powered up, ready to go, are going to get knocked out by this Exeggutor. So he can be very good for that clutch endgame situation where maybe you don't have enough energy on Celebi to close it out, and you just want to go with that Exeggutor attack. I feel like you guys must know the story of Celebi. I still feel like we're trying to figure out the best way to play it, because every single list that has done well is slightly different, right? We saw a Celebi, just superior list. No other Pokemon in the deck do quite well. It won a bit of a weird format tournament. The tournament was a best of 3, but it was closed deck list, and you could switch your decks at any time. You could change cards in the deck. You could completely change your deck between not only games, but between rounds. Sorry, so you could switch them between rounds, but you could also switch them between games, I believe. So the guy said that he just played the Celebi superior list straight. He played it the whole way through. He never switched a card, just played it like that and was able to win that tournament. So we're seeing a divide on just straight Celebi or Celebi with Executor. So we got to see more tournament results, I think, before we can really say what the actual best version of the deck is. But right now, the results seem to be favoring this Executor build. I want to show you guys something completely insane. This is a solo Celebi and solo Mew EX deck. We are just playing a bunch of ways to heal or bounce around our EXs, stop them from ever getting knocked out. I will say I did lose to what seemed to be some sort of just aggro Celebi deck. I never saw a Snivy. I never saw anything else besides Celebi, and they just attached energies to it, and the coin flips went their way. So it's kind of just how you lose to Celebi. Coin flips go their way. But this seems interesting, right? This deck got second place. It went 9-2 at one of these tournaments, so it's not like I'm pulling out like a 5-3 list here. No, I went 9-2, second place, only losing to another Celebi in the finals. A more generic build of Celebi with superior and all that, but it seems pretty okay actually. So you can use the Mew to maybe wall for a turn while you set up the Celebi, then Budding Expeditioner, get it out of there, or just genome hacking if you want to set up a quick guaranteed knockout on something like a Mewtwo. All the while, you could also just play aggro Celebi, like I was saying. Just keep attaching to it in the active spot. Use the Ericas and Potions to heal it up while it's getting damaged, because a lot of the decks that can finally get to a Celebi one-shot range, or sorry, that can one-shot Celebi, it takes them a few turns to get there. And when you give Celebi a few turns, the card just ramps up so quick. Before you know it, you could be out of the game. You know, a Celebi with 4 energy on it has about a 40% chance to knock out any Pokemon in front of it. If it gets 3 or 4 heads, it's going to take out Mewtwo, Celebis, you know, and anything really relevant. Not any of the stage 2 Pokemon, but most of the big attackers that you might be threatened by in this format. Celebi is going to have a pretty good chance to do so. So yeah, the idea of the deck seems smart. You can win games with Celebi just by attaching to it and doing nothing else. Hopefully I'm wrong and this is a fluke, because this is a pretty boring list. You just put Celebi in the active spot and keep attaching to it and then keep flipping coins and see if you win. Doesn't seem like the most fun thing in the world. Reminds me of early genetic Apex format, where we saw a lot of the solo Articuno builds and the Misty reliance with that. Not super creative, not very fun. So I'm hoping that this deck doesn't really exist in the future. Yeah, it's just put those Pokemon in the active spot, use the Ericas, use the blue, use the potion to keep them alive as long as possible, and hopefully win yourself the game before your opponent can do much of anything. Now it's time to talk about Gyarados EX. Gyarados is just on paper a super scary card. 180 HP on a stage 1, and it does 140 damage. Super strong stats. The only problem is that Magikarp has 30 HP, kind of hard to power it up, or sorry, kind of hard to keep it alive on anywhere. And then if your Misties go bad, it can be a little bit difficult to ramp up to that 4 energy. So this is one list I saw. It's with Starmie and Vaporeon. There seems to be a different way to play Gyarados that is performing slightly better. Gyarados, I'm a little bit skeptical on. I spent a lot of time day 1 trying to figure out a Gyarados list, and I just never quite ironed it out. I was trying a Starmie Vaporeon build like what you see here. They're only playing 1 Misties, which is very interesting. I feel like there has to be some card in here that is lower value than a second Misty. I don't know though. I was trying it with the Starmie. I felt like I was just not ever getting into that Gyarados fast enough. It felt like I was playing just worse Starmie Articuno. I tried it with Articuno EXs, still didn't feel great. I tried it with baby Articunos and baby Mewtwo's as walls to try to help get this, just buy me time while I set up this Gyarados in the back and had the Vaporeon to start switching energy around and everything. Just hasn't felt as strong as I initially thought it would, but we do have another list to take a look at that I honestly have not tried and may just be the better way to play it. So take a look here. We have Magikarp, Gyarados, Greninja with the Druddigon as well. I quite like this list. Druddigon feels like one of the better walls in the game now with that rough skin ability. Gyarados falls just short of knocking out Mewtwo's, which is very, very important with its rampaging Whirlpool attack. So the Greninja is here to make it so you don't have to go for the Giovanni play with that, or you don't have to worry about damaging it beforehand to knock it out. So I really like the idea of the Greninja in here. Maybe the Druddigon is just enough to give you the time to wall. There's no Vaporeon, so it's kind of like you have to be very, very careful with your energy in this deck. You need to clearly see your game plan out early and start allocating your energy effectively, because if you decide at any point that it is not a Gyarados game, you don't think that Gyarados is what's going to be able to carry you through, and so you neglect attaching to it, you're not really going to have a time to, backtrack that decision. There's no Vaporeon to bail you out and move your energy around. The only thing that could really bail you out is a Misty for way too many energy. But if that doesn't happen, you're not attacking with the Gyarados. Like, to get the Gyarados up and going in this list, you're going to have to be attaching to it basically from turn 1 in order to hope to build up to that, because you can't always rely on the Misty going well. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they just... You play a game where both of your Misties flip tails first try, so not really much you can do there. But yeah, no, very, very cool. Makes sense to pair it with Greninja, and I feel like this would be a good version, because like I was saying, anytime I paired the Gyarados up with Starmie or Articuno, it just felt like I was playing a worse version of both of those decks. Like, if I had just played Starmie Articuno, it would be working out better. If I had just played Articuno Greninja, it would have worked out better. So this is interesting. I thought to pair it with Greninja, but I've been trying to stay off of the Greninja, just because when I finished out Genetic Apex, all of my deck lists were, okay, what can I use with Greninja now? Because it's just such a strong card. It really is one of the most powerful cards in this game. It fits so well into so many decks because you can play that dual energy. By the way, in this deck, I would say don't play dual energy. I think that anyone playing dual energy for Druddigon is throwing, unless you're playing a deck that is all colorless or is maybe like water, like just water. Like if this was just a Druddigon Greninja list, yeah, you could probably play both water and fire because Greninja only needs one water. But in a list like this, I mean, you're almost never powering up that Druddigon. If you're powering up that Druddigon, I feel like something is going very, very wrong. Trying to get 3 energy on a basic Pokemon with 100 HP that's goal is to sit in the active spot isn't really the best. So just play water in this deck. We got the Leaf to pivot out the Druddigon, and again, another only 2 item card deck. Absolutely insane where deck building has gone. I seriously, I just never thought this would be something we were considering, but it seems like a lot of decks are opting for the Leaf over the X Speed. We're seeing a lot less X Speed played and a lot more Leaf. So I really like this deck. I can't wait to give it a try. I like the theory of it way more than the versions with Vaporeon. Honestly, Vaporeon just hasn't ever felt too good in my testing. It feels like it clunks things up. If I'm running it, then I need to be running those other big water attackers, and maybe my big water attacker in the active spot gets knocked out, or maybe it's just a lot to ask for. I mean, I'm trying to set up a Gyarados and a Vaporeon in one game while also getting energy out in time. It hasn't felt great. So I think that this is, by looking at it, my favorite way to play Gyarados. I'm excited to try it, and yeah, it's done very well. It had a finals appearance in one of these tournaments, so it's tested. It seems like a great way to play. I'm excited to see where Gyarados goes in the future because it has a lot of potential. From what we can tell, Pikachu is going absolutely nowhere. This list just won a big tournament, first place, and really the only change we see here is adding that Dedenne in. Dedenne is just like Electric type Pyukumuku, whatever that thing's called, man. I don't care. I really don't care about that guy. I hate him. Dedenne is just him, but he can do the same thing for only 1 energy instead of 2, which is very, very important in Pikachu. You don't really have a lot of energy attachments to go around. All your guys are kind of squishy. They can get knocked out. You really need to be attaching every single turn very carefully. You know, planning who you're going to be attacking with next with Pikachu very, very carefully. Went with the Electrode build. No Raichu, no mention of the new Raichu we just got in Mythical Island. Just seems to be going with that Electrode list. Yeah, I mean, what else can you say? It's just Pikachu. Nothing else has changed. Pikachu fundamentally is still a very, very strong deck because it is so fast and it is so consistent. That can sometimes just be enough to win you the game, and it seems like Pikachu is still capitalizing on that strength. The only thing that I would think gets harder for it in the meta is Celebi probably can be tough. You're doing 90 damage, and if you're running a Celebi list with Erika's and Potion, you can kind of negate that and make your Celebi last just a little bit longer. But I would still say it's probably favored for Pikachu, right? Mewtwo Pikachu matchup was pretty close as is, and that was a deck that it had a little bit more HP, but it still relied on kind of the same thing. Get a stage 2 set up before your basic EX starts doing much of anything. And Pikachu is going to be hitting Celebi so hard, so quickly. Like if you go second as Pikachu and you get the first attack in on a Celebi with a full bench, you're just doing 90. And then next turn, when they can finally attack, they're only going to be flipping 2 coins with their Celebi attack. And then you just hit them for 90 again and probably knock it out, and there goes all their energy, and maybe they don't have a superior up still. Yeah, it seems tough. It seems tough for Celebi unless they high roll and get into that superior immediately. So I think Pikachu probably takes a favorable matchup with that, and just, again, it's Pikachu, it's consistent, it's fast, it does what it always does. So it seems like it's positioned pretty well in this meta. Don't expect it to go anywhere. Fighting types are not doing as well as I kind of thought they would. Honestly, after playing a few games with the fighting type decks, it still felt like there was some weaknesses there. It didn't feel like the fighting deck was going to break the meta or anything, or even be necessarily that great. Fighting is still just missing that end game potential. At least in this deck, you have Zapdos that can clean things up if the game goes on that long. Other decks have you know, Tauros that they'll put in, or Mew that they'll put in, or whatever. Either way, it just doesn't seem like the fighting deck is keeping up as well as it should against like Celebi and Mewtwo. So yeah, I think Pikachu is just going to keep being a top deck. No real change up there. Sad to say, this was not the Pikachu killing meta as we might have liked to believe, but we have a much sadder deck that is still on top coming up next. He's back and he's still doing amazing. So for some reason, Mewtwo got Mythical Slab. I don't know why Psychic types got this card. I feel like it could have been on any other type, besides the best type in the game getting a type-specific item support card, but here we are. So Mewtwo is still doing very good. Obviously, Mew can be a good counter to Mewtwo, but Mewtwo can also just take advantage of the Mew as well. It now helps it in the mirror match. Mewtwo is still just that strong. With a lot of decks, they can sometimes power up a Mewtwo before you can even power up a Mew, right? Because if they get the first attach in, or if they're evolving first, whatever, they can sometimes get into that Gardevoir Mewtwo side drive before you get your Mew powered up, and that can pose its own problems. Yeah, Mewtwo just still seems super, super good. It's now faster because of Mythical Slab. You get into that Gardevoir quicker, more often now. It's got a bunch of new support cards too. It's got Leaf. It's playing blue. So if it looks like you've got 2 energy on a Mew, guess what? If I have the blue in my hand, your Mew is now no longer going to be one-shotting my Mewtwo. Unless, of course, you want to play the Giovanni, but hoping for the Giovanni Mew play, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough to get there. you're probably not playing in a deck that is as fast as Mewtwo is now, right? Mythical Slab's going to be churning through the deck a little bit faster if it hits a Psychic Pokemon. It's just going to give them that little advantage in moving through their deck to find that blue faster, either through just your draw for turn or your research. So Mewtwo is still insanely strong. It got even better than just the Mew tech. It now has the Mythical Slab. It has the Leaf to preserve energies on your Mewtwo and retreat him out. Just a ridiculously strong deck still. It's not winning as much, though. It's not winning as much. It's still being beaten. It's being kept in place by a lot of these Scolipedes going around. Celebi can beat it for sure. Pikachu can still do its thing against it if they have a bit of a slower setup. So yeah, it's not totally dominating. It is the most represented deck right now. Guys, we're in a new format. You don't have to keep playing Mewtwo. You can play something else. There are other good decks out there. There are other good decks. Aren't you bored? It's been a while. You've been playing Mewtwo for a while. Why don't you put it down? Go try something else. All right. We don't need this. We don't need Mewtwo to be the most represented deck in the game anymore. Anyways, Mewtwo's still good. Gonna still be good. Nothing you can really do. Mewtwo is here to stay. All right, we'll talk about Ninetales, Rapidash, Blaine Box very quickly because it's doing okay, but it's not doing fantastic. It's doing about as good as it was in Genetic Apex. We now have the new Rapidash as a tech in here. It looks like they are opting to play it. Makes sense to me. In a pinch, it can be a potential 100 damage. If you have that extra energy attachment to go around, it is strictly just better to be attacking with it than the Rapidash we already had. So we also got the Stomp Ponyta, the new one that can do 40 damage on a coin flip. That is just a straight upgrade as well. Other than that, not much has changed with the deck. We are running the blue, so we can maybe stop a knockout from a Pikachu attacking our Ninetales. We can stop a Mewtwo from two-shotting us with its first attack, but I feel like in that position you would just want a potion. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't even know when the blue really comes into place. I feel like most things kind of just get through you even with blue. Or you just want to be playing another supporter for turn that isn't blue, right? Like you'd rather be playing Blaine or Giovanni or Sabrina. So not sure where that even comes up. But either way, yeah, it seems like Ninetales Rapidash is just doing okay. Not the best, but I just want to give you an update that it is here. It is being represented. Still seems to be on the fringe of the meta, just like last format. The last deck we're going to touch on is what is probably the best fighter deck right now. Charizard EX got very, very hurt by the fact that everything is running Mew for the most part. There's just not a lot that Charizard can do to deal with a Mew that's sitting on the bench. Even if Charizard played blue, it's still going to get one shot by Mew. There's just nothing. There's no counterplay for Charizard to that as of right now, unless someone figures out something in a list. So we can just go back to Arcanine. And this kind of functions almost the same as the way that Charizard Arcanine did at last format. You have the Arcanine to be like the speedy guy that's in here to take out the Mews and the Celebes and Starmies, stuff like that. And then for the bigger Pokemon that you can't deal with, that do a ton of damage, you got the Mew in here. So Mewtwo was always a very tough matchup for this. That's really why this deck never took off the ground entirely. It did very, very well, but it was never, I don't think it was ever an S tier deck is what I'm saying. But now with the Mew, and you can have some sort of counterplay into that Mewtwo deck. Yeah, it seems like Arcanine is very well positioned. This won a tournament, so obviously very, very strong to be winning a tournament. The rest of the list here, this feels more like a Genetic Apex list with just a few tech cards. We got the Budding Expeditioner. Budding Expeditioner is just super good because you can bounce that Mew up again. It acts as acts as a fourth pivot card in this list if you start Mew and just want to get into that Moltres immediately to start using Inferno Dance. And if you're worried about getting if you're worried about getting Sabrina at the end of the game and you have the Mew as the liability on the bench, well, you can switch into the Mew Budding Expeditioner, and that's no longer a problem. So I can see the reason for it being in this list. You seem to have a ton of room because you're only playing 2, 4, 6, 7 Pokemon. So all that room for trainers means you could really just play pretty much whatever and not worry about the space. I like going down to 1 Giovanni, since really you'll only ever need that Giovanni for things like Zapdos or Starmie, but you're much more likely to be swinging into Celebes or other Mews. Even Mew isn't great to attack into Arcanine, because if Arcanine attacks into Mew and then Mew attacks into Arcanine, Mew knocks itself out unless it gets potioned. But either way, you'll still be able to find that Giovanni if you need it in that circumstance. Very, very cool. I loved Arcanine in the past format, so I'm excited that it seems like it is now even better positioned just due to the decks that we have. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know what decks you guys have been trying out. I've been working on a little secret Pidgeot deck, trying to get it to work. But yeah, I've been having a ton of fun with Mythical Island. I'm excited to see where the meta goes. We're about a month away from the next set, but I expect it to be just like Genetic Apex, where week over week we see development after development, new idea after new idea. Make sure, if you guys enjoyed the content, to please like and sub to the channel. I really appreciate it. Have a good one.